Back from the FIFA week. Finally, we're going straight to the Premier League. We had some polemic decisions last weekend. Talking about Everton 10-point deduction. I won't talk about that right now. But winning or not, that interferes in some games and some ways of seeing here the matches. But let's go straight into it. Match week 13, Manchester City Liverpool to start our weekend. I've seen some people criticize about the time of the game, which is like by noon. For me here in Brazil, it's hella fine. It's 9:30, so yeah, I don't have that type of complaint. But maybe for you on lunchtime, it gets a little tricky, right? Um, Manchester City and Liverpool. Well, we didn't have any follow up to the city case on the 115 allegations, so I think that shouldn't really interfere in the game in that perspective. But we have like Erling Haaland hurt, right? He's injured. He's gonna be out like for 2 months, and that's gonna interfere a little bit in the attacking. But I think they have substitute players, right? For me, Alvarez can do that striking position perfectly, and not as perfect as Haaland, but he can do it well. I don't think uh, they're gonna have a lot of struggle tactic wise, but they're against a very strong Liverpool who are confident. I think this may be a draw here, if I'm being honest here. Considering that Erling Haaland is injured and that Manchester City took a draw from Chelsea, which Chelsea played really good, I think a draw here is reasonable. I think it's gonna be a draw, 2-2 draw, good old draw here. I think that's okay. Burnley in West Ham. Burnley is in the relegation battle here. West Ham, on the other hand, they are a strong team, mid-table team, I would say. They've struggled a little bit too much on some games. For example, against Nottingham Forest, they could have lost that game, right? But they got the victory. I think they are a bit sloppy in the defense here, but offensive wise, they are dominant. Okay, we have Bowen scoring a lot of goals. Antonio doing some hard work there sometimes, scoring his goals too. Ward Prowse in the creation. Sosak, great players. Players that help in the team offensively quite a lot, right? So I'm going with a good old advantage here to West Ham, and I think that 1-3 victory here for West Ham is okay. Uh, I repeat, defensive wise, they're not as solid as offensive, so I'm going for they're conceding one goal here. Sheffield in Bournemouth, a relegation battle here. It's quite hard to predict this one. I believe more in Bournemouth. Last weekend on the Premier League, they've done an amazing match against Newcastle, a 2-0 victory. So they got the confidence here from last game in the Premier League. And Sheffield, on the other hand, they've been very sloppy. Just got like 3 points in a very polemic match against Wolves, and 1 point that I don't even know who he was up against. Uh, they're playing at home, that's fact. But I'm gonna believe a little bit more in Bournemouth here. I think they have more capacities to score goals. I'm going for a close victory here for them. I'm going for a 2-1 victory for Bournemouth. I think that's gonna be close game. It can be a draw, easily a draw here. But I think Bournemouth has a little bit of an edge here. It could have also be a Sheffield United victory here, but I don't think it's gonna be okay. Nottingham Forest and Brighton. Brighton. It's it's like it's not sad. Brighton has been doing amazing season by season, but seeing how the team started, the way it's going right now is not brilliant. It's not motivating. It's not convincing. They're been very much sloppy, and Nottingham Forest at home is a very dangerous team. They've taken points from many other teams, many stronger teams. I think this is gonna be a closer game than it should for Brighton. Uh, I'm going for a draw here. I think that's reasonable. Uh, De Zerbi is a very good manager, but Brighton right now they are sloppy. They're not that confident. Maybe the FIFA week may help them with some internal problems, conversation problems, and stuff like that. Maybe they put their head in the way, in the correct place, but in the moment, judging by now, I think it would be a draw here. I think it's the most okay result here. Newcastle and Chelsea. This one is hard to predict too, okay? Chelsea has had a turning point in the season and they've been playing amazing. Okay, it's just you see against Manchester City, they played a very good game. They could have got the 3 points and they just got one, but it was a really good match, a really good match to watch too. I think Chelsea is not to be down on, but Newcastle is always so good, especially at home. If we're talking about home, Newcastle is really good, and they've rested their their players in the FIFA week. And not many players went to the FIFA week, right? So they're gonna be rested here. I'm going for Newcastle here. I think Chelsea has to prove a little bit more. Although they've proven it a little bit against Manchester City game, it was one great game, but we still have to see how some players are gonna deal with possible allegations and possible crises in the club, just like we saw with Manchester City. But none of these still here. They've really taken anything. But it's still something that interferes in the player's mind, you know? I'm going for Newcastle here. They're very strong, playing at home. Um, they're probably gonna try take the 3 points here because of last loss in against Bournemouth. They're gonna have to prove that here. I'm gonna go with 2-1 victory here. Okay, 2-1 victory here. Uh, Luton Town and Crystal Palace. Luton Town is in the bottom of the league, a relegation battle. Not very strong, not very strong players too. Crystal Palace, very inconsistent, I would say. Some matches they should have got some points and didn't, and others where they could have lost, they won it. So Crystal Palace away from home against Luton Town at home. I'm gonna give the edge here a little bit to Crystal Palace, but I do think this is gonna be a draw. I have a feeling this is gonna be a draw if I'm being honest here. Doesn't have anything to defend my point here, but Crystal Palace in the season has been very inconsistent, and maybe this one FIFA week they've lost a little bit of tempo and stuff like that. And Luton Town playing at home, they're gonna try to hold it pretty much. A 2-2 is very much wrong because Luton Town won't be able to score 2 goals, right? So 1 goal for each side here. I think that's more like it. Brentford and Arsenal. I think this is a good old victory here for Arsenal. I could have been wrong here. Could have happened something against here. Brentford is not a bad team, I repeat. But Arsenal overall is very much that type. I put Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City in another place from other teams. So I think Arsenal is going to be able to take a victory here. I think that's the most logical and concise decision to make here if I wanted to predict here. I think this is going to be, let's see how dominant they're gonna be, but I think 1-3 victory here, it's okay. Tottenham against Aston Villa. We have to see. We have to see. Last game from Tottenham was really bad. We weren't as offensive as we used to be. So many changes because of injured players. Talking about injured players, this season overall is being injured every single player from every single club. There is a high rise from last season by like 20%, something like that, because of the amount of games they're having. Like is Champions League, is Europa League, is Premier League, is the Cup, FIFA week with 2 games. That's a lot of games for players. We can talk about that later in another video because the amount of games they're having is absurd. The greedy by the top and mind of the clubs are just absurd. So taking all that in mind, Aston Villa, offensive wise, very strong. I think they're gonna score here 1, maybe 2 goals here. We're gonna have to see how Tottenham is gonna go here. I would I want to go for the victory here for them. It's gonna be hard. We're gonna have to see how the team's gonna. We're gonna have Udogi back, but we won't have Romero back. Romero is just the next game. So yeah, the center backs are not as convincing, not as good as you would like them to be. That's a little bit down. It may be a draw here, but I'm gonna go with the Tottenham victory here, 2-1 victory here. I think that's okay. They're at home after all, right? So I think that's okay. Everton and Manchester United. This is maybe the hardest game to predict here in the week because we don't know how Everton are gonna play after the 10-point deduction. I think they should play ahead, try to get the points and get out of the relegation. They're gonna receive a lot of support from the fans. I'm gonna see that. They're playing at home. So it's the fact that all the fans are gonna make so much noise. Maybe this will help the players here. They're gonna feel a little bit maybe sad for the 10-point deduction. Gonna play a little bit more down. But they're against Manchester United, which so down in the moment. It's surprising that Ten Hag is still is a manager. They've got some victories here in the Premier League against weak teams, not convincing too. Very hard to predict here. I'm going. Maybe Everton is gonna get in the field with blood in the eyes, with that will, that will of victory. Maybe that's gonna be it, but we cannot be so sure. Just watching the game to be sure. But I'm going for a victory here for Everton. They not been playing bad. They've been playing really good. All the thing that can take away here is the 10-point deduction, because if you want to talk about recent games, recent performances, I think Everton's been better, okay? Manchester United got the victories, but like by 1 goal difference and very not convincing. I'm gonna go with Everton here, but it could easily be a draw or a Manchester United victory here. We have to see how the 10-point deduction is gonna interfere in Everton's game. But I'm going with it for the moment. I'm gonna go with 1-0 victory here. I think that's gonna be it. I have very little news in the score here. Yeah, this is my first one. Let's see. Fulham and Wolves. Wolves have been doing amazing. Fulham should have been done better. They've played Manchester United last game weekend. Yeah, I mean, you definitely see something off with Fulham. They're lacking in offensive, not having that striker, that strong big guy in front, scoring goals and getting through the line. That's a big difference here. Wolves, tactical-wise, they're confident here. I think they may be able to get this. But Fulham are at home. I think a draw here is nothing to be slept on. I'm gonna go with draw here. And I think a 1-1 draw here is okay. So what do you think about my predictions here? We have some great games this weekend. We have Everton coming from a 10-point deduction. I'm gonna cheer for Everton because, like, not that it was unfair, but considering that the other teams didn't suffer from it, that's unfair. I think 10-point deduction is fair for the allegations and for what's been done, but it should be done It should happen to every team that made the same mistakes, right? And it didn't happen. So it's unfair in that point that it just happened to Everton. But I think the punishment itself is not unfair. Okay. So what do you think about my predictions here? Let's see how it's gonna roll, and see you next time, guys.